The Middle East is moving from proxy conflict toward direct state-on-state escalation. Recent military actions signal a potential shift that could have profound implications for global stability. Here's what you need to know about the unfolding crisis between the United States and Iran. As the situation evolves, several potential scenarios could unfold in the coming days and weeks. The recent escalation in tensions between the U.S. and Iran has drawn international attention, particularly given the history of conflict in the region. This latest round of hostilities follows years of strained relations, marked by the U.S. withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal in 2018 and subsequent sanctions that have crippled Iran's economy. One possibility is that the U.S. responds with additional military action, further escalating the conflict. This could involve targeted airstrikes on Iranian military assets or an increased naval presence in the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz, through which a significant portion of the world's oil supply is transported. Alternatively, the U.S. might opt for a strategy of deterrence, focusing on diplomatic efforts to de-escalate tensions while maintaining a strong military posture. This dual approach reflects a complex balancing act, as the U.S. seeks to protect its interests without provoking a wider war. On the Iranian side, further retaliatory strikes or proxy actions could occur, particularly targeting U.S. interests in the Gulf or allied nations in the region. Such actions could exacerbate the already fragile security landscape, fueling regional instability. The international community will be closely monitoring the oil market, as sustained fears of disruption could keep prices elevated, impacting economies worldwide. This economic pressure may incentivize governments to pursue diplomatic solutions to avoid further escalation. Key indicators to watch include any official statements from U.S. military leadership, Iranian media reports of further attacks, and fluctuations in global oil prices. As tensions rise, a critical question emerges. Can both sides find a path to de-escalation before this conflict spirals out of control? The coming days will be pivotal in determining whether diplomatic channels can effectively avert a broader confrontation. The confrontation between the United States and Iran has reached a critical juncture, marked by a series of recent airstrikes that have escalated tensions dramatically. This escalation is rooted in a complex history of animosity and mistrust, primarily fueled by Iran's nuclear ambitions and its expanding influence across the Middle East. The U.S. withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal in 2018 served as a turning point, leading to a deterioration of diplomatic relations that had been carefully negotiated over years. Since then, both nations have engaged in numerous retaliatory actions, including Iran's aggressive maneuvers against commercial shipping in the Persian Gulf and the imposition of stringent U.S. sanctions aimed at crippling Iran's economy. These sanctions have severely impacted Iran's economic stability, leading to widespread protests and increased domestic discontent. In response to perceived threats, the U.S. has bolstered its military presence in the region, signaling a readiness to confront Iranian provocations head-on. This military buildup has not only heightened tensions, but has also prompted Iran to adopt more aggressive postures, resulting in the recent airstrikes that have brought the two nations into direct conflict. The implications of this confrontation extend beyond military considerations, as financial markets have reacted swiftly, with oil prices surging amid fears of potential supply disruptions that could ripple through the global economy. The current trajectory suggests an increasingly volatile environment where miscalculations could lead to broader regional instability. Analysts warn that the stakes have never been higher, and the risk of an outright military confrontation looms large. As both countries navigate this precarious landscape, the potential for diplomatic solutions appears increasingly tenuous. The coming weeks will be pivotal in determining whether dialogue can be revived or if the situation will devolve into further hostilities. The recent escalation between the U.S. and Iran has raised alarms globally as tensions threaten to spiral into a broader regional conflict. This situation is particularly precarious due to the strategic importance of the Strait of Hormuz, a crucial maritime corridor through which approximately 20% of the world's oil is transported. Historically, the strait has been a flashpoint for geopolitical tensions, with its narrow confines making it vulnerable to disruptions. Any military engagement in this area could not only obstruct shipping routes but also lead to dramatic spikes in oil prices, thereby affecting economies around the globe. The Iranian Revolutionary Guards are currently positioned for potential retaliation, signaling a readiness to engage militarily if provoked. This posture raises the stakes for U.S. allies in the region, especially Israel, which has historically been at odds with Iran and may feel compelled to act should Iranian actions escalate further. The risk of a rapid escalation is palpable, as both nations have shown a willingness to respond aggressively to perceived threats. The current climate of hostility has already begun to influence market perceptions, with investors reacting to the heightened risks by adjusting their portfolios. For the average consumer, the implications of rising oil prices are significant. Increased fuel costs can lead to higher prices for goods and services, creating a ripple effect that impacts everyday life. From commuting to work to purchasing groceries, the economic burden on households could become increasingly pronounced. Moreover, the geopolitical ramifications of this conflict extend beyond the Middle East, potentially reshaping global alliances and security dynamics in unpredictable ways. As nations reconsider their foreign policies and alliances in light of these tensions, the potential for broader conflicts or diplomatic negotiations remains uncertain. The international community must navigate this complex landscape carefully, balancing the need for security with the imperative of maintaining economic stability. Observers will be closely monitoring developments in the coming weeks. As the situation evolves and the potential for diplomatic resolutions or further military actions unfolds. Moving forward, the focus will be on whether cooler heads can prevail, preventing a conflict that could have devastating consequences for the global economy and regional stability. On June 11, 2026, the United States launched a series of airstrikes against Iranian targets, escalating tensions in an already volatile region. According to reports from Reuters, these strikes were a direct response to Iranian provocations that had been mounting in the weeks leading up to this day. The strikes occurred primarily around the Strait of Hormuz, a critical maritime corridor for global oil shipments. This area is vital not only for the economies of the Gulf states, but also for international trade, as approximately 1/5 of the world's oil passes through this narrow strait. The U.S. military action is seen as a significant shift in its approach to Iran, moving away from sanctions and diplomatic efforts toward direct military engagement. Following the U.S. action, Iranian state media reported that the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, IRGC, executed retaliatory strikes against a U.S. base in Jordan and targeted 21 additional facilities across the Gulf region. This marked a significant escalation, as it not only involved direct military engagement, but also highlighted Iran's willingness to retaliate against U.S. interests in the region. In conjunction with the strikes, the U.S. Treasury Department announced sanctions against 11 individuals and entities linked to Iran's military procurement efforts, aiming to further cripple Iran's military capabilities. The immediate effect of these developments was felt on global financial markets, with oil prices surging and Asian shares declining as concerns over potential conflict escalated. Analysts noted that this situation is distinct from previous skirmishes primarily due to the direct military actions taken by both nations, indicating a shift toward open confrontation rather than proxy warfare. The long-term implications of this escalation could be profound, potentially destabilizing the entire region and affecting global energy prices. Experts warn that continued military engagements could lead to a wider conflict, drawing in allies and adversaries alike. As nations reassess their strategies in light of these developments, diplomatic channels may become increasingly strained. Looking ahead, the international community faces a critical juncture. The potential for further military action looms large, and the need for diplomatic interventions has never been more urgent. The coming days will determine whether this conflict can be de-escalated or if it will spiral into a broader confrontation that reshapes regional dynamics. As we witness this critical juncture between the U.S. and Iran, what will the next steps be? Share your predictions in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for daily deep dives into the world's most pressing issues.